Today, I'm going to show you the science behind this amazing discovery that involves magnesium and vitamin D that has huge implications if you are a senior or you have aging parents. Now, I've done a lot of videos on magnesium and vitamin D3, but this one is different because it has to do with an interaction between these two nutrients that can help you with bone loss, osteoporosis, also with heart disease, high blood pressure, also with mental acuity thinking and memory. And there's been a recent study that just came out that shows some very interesting things about this whole topic. So stick around and I'm going to explain it all. By the way, I want to thank everybody who is sharing these videos. I really appreciate it. It helps other people find this information too, so thank you so much for your support. I get asked every day about different supplements to take for various problems and symptoms. There are a few supplements that I recommend to almost everyone. And if you're new here, I want to share with you what they are. But again, this video is not about just any supplement. It's about magnesium and vitamin D3 and why you need to know the science behind how they work together before taking them. So let's talk about this study. What did they find? Well, they found something very interesting in over 40,000 people over the age of 50. They were looking at vitamin D levels and magnesium levels and their relationship with cardiovascular disease and also all-cause mortality. In other words, death from anything. Okay, let me explain what they found. First of all, most people don't realize this, but vitamin D actually activates in the body when it combines with magnesium. This is really important to know because then you know that you need both of these nutrients to make vitamin D active and inactive. Vitamin D without magnesium won't work. Magnesium without vitamin D won't work. Now, the reason why is because vitamin D is a precursor. Okay, it's like a raw material. It needs to be converted to the active form, and that requires magnesium. But here's the kicker. If you're deficient in magnesium, you're not going to have enough of the active form of vitamin D. If you're low on vitamin D, you're also not going to have enough active vitamin D. So if you're deficient in either one of these nutrients, you're not going to get the full benefit of vitamin D. This is why I think it's a great idea to take both of these nutrients together. What they found in this study was that when people took higher amounts of vitamin D, there was a greater reduction in cardiovascular events and death from cardiovascular events when they took magnesium along with vitamin D compared to just taking vitamin D alone. It was a very small amount of magnesium, only 200 billion of elemental magnesium. Elemental magnesium is the type of magnesium that you would find on the periodic table. That's the kind of magnesium we're talking about here, 200 milligrams. What about magnesium citrate or magnesium glycinate or magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts? Well, those all have different amounts of elemental magnesium. So if you're taking magnesium in any form, make sure you look at the label and see how much elemental magnesium you're getting. Because this study used 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium, which is equivalent to about 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate. Now, they didn't mention in the study what dose of vitamin D they were using, but other studies show that between 10,000 and 20,000 IU of vitamin D3 per day seems to be the optimal dose to use. So I'm assuming they were using one of those doses in this study. But, they didn't say, so we don't know for sure. But, it wouldn't take much vitamin D to make a difference. We're talking about a very small amount. Let's think about this. You have 1 million people, right? And they're breaking them up into groups based on whether they're taking magnesium or not. And so you have one group that has 50,000 people, and you have another group that has 50,000 people, and you're giving half of each group vitamin D and the other half no vitamin D, and you're following them for years to see what happens, and you find that the group that gets vitamin D with magnesium has less cardiovascular events and less deaths, okay? So clearly vitamin D alone is not enough. You need magnesium along with it. Now, even though we're talking about a very small amount of magnesium, I'm going to tell you how to get it naturally. But first, I want to share with you another finding from this study. When the researchers looked at the subgroup of people who already had cardiovascular disease, they found that if you added magnesium to vitamin D, you lowered the risk of death by 29%. And that is huge. And this tells us that magnesium and vitamin D are essential cofactors for each other. They work together. They have synergistic effects, meaning that if you're low in one or the other, you don't get the full benefit of that nutrient. Now, here's how you can get magnesium naturally. Of course, the best way is through your food. Unfortunately, most soils are depleted of minerals, including magnesium. So most foods don't have enough magnesium. But there are a few foods that are really high in magnesium. One is pumpkin seeds, which have a lot of magnesium. Another one is chia seeds. These also have a lot of magnesium. So I like to mix chia seeds in my smoothies. It adds a little bit of a slimy texture, but it's good. It has a good flavor. I mean, it's really not noticeable. But anyway, I like to add that to my smoothie. Dark chocolate also has a lot of magnesium. Almonds have a lot of magnesium. Avocados have a lot of magnesium. Spinach has a good amount of magnesium, but again, these are all plant foods, and unfortunately, plant foods don't have much vitamin D. You can get vitamin D by being out in the sun, but that's becoming more difficult to do nowadays, especially if you live in the north where I live. Anyway, I wanted to share this new data with you about magnesium and vitamin D3 because I think it's very important. I think it's going to change the way we view vitamins and minerals and how we need to take them and how we need to think about them. Because now we know that you can't just take vitamin D and expect to get the full benefit of vitamin D unless you also have sufficient amounts of magnesium. And likewise, if you're low in magnesium, you can't expect to get the full benefit of magnesium unless you also have sufficient amounts of vitamin D. I also want to mention that if you take a lot of calcium, that will block your absorption of magnesium. So you need to watch your calcium intake. If you're taking a lot of calcium, maybe you have osteoporosis, maybe you're worried about your bones, you should definitely be taking magnesium along with it. In fact, if you take calcium without magnesium, you can actually increase your risk of getting a fracture. So it's very important to know that. Magnesium also helps lower cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It's very important for counteracting the effects of stress. So if you are under a lot of stress or you are trying to come off of a medication like prednisone, which is a synthetic version of cortisol, then magnesium can help you with that. All right, there's a lot more to this topic, but I wanted to share this new study with you. I hope you found this helpful. As always, I want to tell you to be well, and I'll see you next time. Hey, before you go, if you're benefiting from any of this content, please share your success story in the link down below.